Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko, happy to be with you. The guys, as usual, Tariq, Spence, how you doing?
Got to say hello to our fan, John, is a Pirates fan. Ran into him. He loves watching the show.
And so we're up to how many now?
Hey. Why count? Just enjoy the love.
We really can't do that. So, Pat Duffy's wearing throwback Timberwolves?
Well, it wasn't throwback when I got it. Authentic Wally Zerbiak Timberwolves jersey. Okay, first of all, little sparkles in the sewn-on is beautiful. And the little trees, both sides, negative space around the collar. And this is great. I love this jersey.
That's going to be a top 10 name that's hardest to spell.
Zerbiak? S-Z, I'm out.
Yeah. They just shortened it to Wolves now. They don't even call them Timberwolves.
That's Krzyzewski. So let's talk baseball. We hit the... we hit these milestones, Memorial Day weekend, because the season's so long, we have to do something. So what strikes you at this point in the baseball season?
Is anybody sort of pretty much rooting for the new Yankees, the more outgoing Yankees, the not so tied up Yankees? Yeah, look at Juan Soto, for example. Juan Soto is not the type of player the Yankees would have went for before. You got to be buttoned up. You got to be straight-laced. Same thing with Marcus Stroman, who's pitching extremely well for the Yankees. Same sort of thing, pipe it down a little bit. It's all about the team. You know what cures all that? Winning. Winning cures all of that stuff of, I like to keep things buttoned up and clean and professional. The Yankees are changing their persona. I kind of have to say I like it.
All right, I'm really not on board.
What is he talking about?
What do you mean? What am I talking about? The buttoned-up Yankees are actually loosening up and still winning, still without Gary Cole?
It's not fun. Who has fun in cheering for the Yankees?
I'm not cheering for them. I just like their new sort of style.
And there's some kind of sacrilegious thing going on here with a Mets fan.
Well, we're terrible.
Praises the
we're
Yankees.
absolutely right, and I believe that our closer is actually tipping pitches. I'll say that out loud.
Whoa.
I think he doesn't know it, but I think everybody knows what's coming, and everyone's hitting it.
But you know it.
Oh, I know. There must be some explanation for our top-notch closer blowing saves year in and year out. What are the other chances that somebody knows what's coming before it comes?
All right, I knew we get good if you turn it towards the Mets.
Oh, by the way,
anger and the emotion comes
and
out.
by the way, we offered Pete Alonso $160 million and it wasn't enough. Okay, all right. So.
What has impressed you so far?
So it's not so much impressed as confused. Just talking personally, I'm a Toronto Blue Jays fan, bigger Toronto Blue Jays fan back in the day than I am now. But this was supposed to be the renaissance the last 3-4 years. You had these brilliant young players in Bichette and Guerrero, and you had guys winning MVPs and guys winning Cy Youngs, and it was always right around the corner. And for some reason, despite all of the talent they've had on this team over the last 3-4 years, they just can't figure out a way to make it work, and it is infuriating the way that they give up leads. It doesn't make any sense. How are they not scoring runs with all the firepower that
they still have that roster and they're in last place?
It doesn't make any freaking sense. You got a city that supports them. They go out and they watch the games now that the talent's there. You have the name on the roster. You have what's supposed to be the bats, and it just doesn't work.
You know what's interesting? The big budget teams like the Yankees, Dodgers, same sort of thing. They all look great starting off of the year, and then somewhere along the line, some team like the Texas Rangers comes out of nowhere, comes some sort of run. People can't figure out Tampa Bay and how they're able to make their runs late. To your point, they went out there and it looked like they made all the right moves, Toronto, and it's still not working.
And here's the thing, they didn't even commit major dollars. These were guys they all brought up through their system, right? These aren't major. You had a window and the window is now closing and it's heartbreaking.
And Vlad Guerrero was at one point on par with Ohtani. Those two were neck and neck for the MVP race. But that seems like a decade ago. Well, it isn't, but it seems like.
You bring up Ohtani. There was so much faith in Toronto as a franchise. There was even whispers that Ohtani was signing in Toronto this offseason. He was going to be the missing piece, and here we are.
My thing is Paul Skeens.
Oh, do
both
tell.
know Paul Skeens?
Yes.
Boy. So Pittsburgh, he's the big next thing. He's had 2 major league starts, and his second one he comes out, he's on a pitch limit. He goes 6 no-hit innings with a walk and 11 strikeouts. And he throws over half his pitches at 100 miles an hour. First pick of the draft, the most recent draft. And he's going to be, if he stays healthy, he's going to be amazing.
Are you okay with them pulling him hitless 6 innings on the pitch count?
Well, he was never going to be able to go 9.
Okay, but you don't want to see how far he can go and keep that hitless streak going? Look at you. What happened to you? What happened to you?
When he's got 5 years under the Strasburg thing is still so fresh.
What team does he play for? The Pittsburgh Pirates?
Yeah. Well, she'll be there a couple years, right, Joe?
That's a hopeful voice right there. That's a hopeful voice. He doesn't get lured away by the big budget
teams. No, if you haven't seen it,
teams.
by the end of the year, if he keeps this up, he's going to be the #1 attraction, I think, in Major League Baseball. He's
over
the real
Shohei?
deal.
I don't know. All he's doing is hitting. He hasn't even pitched again yet.
We've seen that, though. We haven't seen a guy like him in a long time, I don't think. This is Rochester Press Box, and we're talking Buffalo Bills next.
Just Passing Through, life lessons from notable Rochesterians, people you may think you know. Don Alhart, Maggie Brooks, John Dady, and Stacy Pension, J. Mack and Soccer Sam, Fred Costello, and Jake Zembeck, along with 21 more. How they all got from there to here. It's a new book by Bill Pucko, available for $12 postpaid only from rocksportsnow.com. Try it, and thank you.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Talking Buffalo Bills, not a lot to talk about, but the OTAs have begun, and Josh Allen's coming out saying all the right things about his wide receiver core.
Well, I mean, look, he always says all the right things. And look, to be fair, Josh Allen also always does the right things.
Yeah.
It all comes down to how the games and the seasons end up finishing. I will say this. I am a sucker for guys in shorts with no pads on running routes and catching footballs. Because every year when OTAs and minicamp start, I'm all like, we got time. And then I start seeing highlights of Josh zipping the ball into some receiver that he didn't have last year, which is all of them pretty much this year. And I must have watched a 3-minute clip over and over and over again. Keon Coleman and Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Chase Claypool and all these guys. Look at him go.
Logic tells you it's not going to work. I mean, the way they got him, where they drafted Coleman, and the fact, and I sort of dismissed last week, you suggested that Valdez-Scantling might be the number one. That might actually happen.
Well, I mean, listen, you still have two solid tight ends. I mean, there's no reason to worry there. But the question is, over an 18-game season, who is going to emerge as that number one receiver in a clutch moment? That's yet to be determined. Let Josh handle that out. I will say this, though. Josh has been busy. I mean, that promotional video I saw of him at the construction site, that is pretty smart marketing right there if you have anything. And oh, by the way, the celebrity softball game. There's not a lot to talk here yet because there really hasn't been a huge transaction that makes you feel great, even about OTAs.
And there won't be a transaction, right? Like what we have is what we see. And I don't know if there is a number one receiver this year. Maybe it's number one receiver by committee because, look, last year, the number one receiver for the Buffalo Bills didn't eclipse 100 yards in 7 weeks and had one touchdown over the last however. I mean, I think that the point that Tariq made, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox are going to play a much bigger role than we anticipated when the offseason started.
They can reinvent that. I'm just finishing the book Dynasty, and a lot of the Patriots' success was based when they had Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski. They've reinvented offense and were extremely effective. Nobody else has been able to duplicate that formula. Maybe Buffalo's the team that does it.
The dangerous thing to do with these receivers, and you know what a diehard Bills fan I am, is to anticipate they're going to keep taking steps forward. Because if Shakir stays where he is, he's a really good third NFL receiver, which is something you need on your roster. The anticipation for Gabe Davis was he was going to take that monster step forward to be one of the best second receivers in the league. And he was the third guy the entire time. Mm-hmm. I need Shakir to show me that before I'm ready to put that responsibility in his lap.
But one thing Gabe Davis did do, he would give you 1 week where you're just like, this is the number one receiver in football. And then he would go 5 weeks without seeing that.
Bro, he's a guy where he would have 3 touchdowns on 190 yards, and then for the next 2 weeks have 2 catches for 17, and it made 0 sense.
I think you still have to frame this too. I think Brandon Beane has one eye on 2024 and the other one on 2025. This team could really be. Tim Graham broke it down. I felt all along that 2025 is kind of the goal here. He broke it down in terms of where the salary cap is headed and the contracts they've got. He said they could be in really, really good shape the next offseason.
Smart move here. Try to find these young wide receivers. You can get on these rookie deals, a couple of veterans to plug it in. You know Allen's going to soak up a lot of money over the next couple of years.
And look, the bottom line is this. If you give Josh the opportunity to make these guys stars and it works, all that money you have, that's in your defense now. Go win a championship.
Where the Rochester Press Box, like it or not, is next.
Here's the Press Box Trivia question brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road.
Thank you, American architect Frank Lloyd Wright, and this amazing getaway to Grey Cliff. Hello again, Mike O'Brien, your getaway guy. I'll take you on the tour. Just look for the getaway guy right now on Facebook.
Here's the Press Box Trivia answer brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box, our Like It or Not segment, brought to you by Ralph Honda, where Honda is done right. Online or in their showroom, build your new Honda, get financing and a quote on your trade. Visit your next Honda. Visit Ralph Honda. Like it or not, we're down to the Final Four in the NBA. You like them?
Yeah. Listen, would I have liked my Knicks in the Final Four? Yes. Do I understand why they lost? Yes. Am I willing to accept it? Not quite yet. That being said, I will say this about the Boston Celtics. Of the 4 teams that are left, if you are not hoisting the championship trophy at the final NBA game of the year, I will never believe in you. There's no possible way a young Timberwolves team who looks really good taking on the champions, a team like the Dallas Mavericks, who've got 2 big stars, maybe Washington you throw in there as a third, or the Indiana Pacers with the way they're currently constructed, should be hoisting that trophy before you. This is Boston's year. There is no better one.
I don't disagree with you, but that's why they're not going to win. We are in a weird influx of change in the NBA, right? Like, you have a team in Dallas that's also been right on the cusp for all of these years, and I guess you could argue deserves a championship based on time and grade. You have a team in the Timberwolves, you don't know what they are, because their talent is unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely.
But they also don't have the experience of knowing how to close out games in series.
Except for Denver.
But they did. They could have closed it out earlier. They put themselves in that position. And then Indiana, right? Like, on paper, the Celtics should be blowing them out of the water. That game 1 was an unbelievable game.
Too close.
They are such, and you saw it against the Knicks, that second game, right? Like, they got that 10-point lead, and they didn't surrender it, right? Like, anytime the Knicks went on a run, and they played really well, even with the injuries, that counterpunch came back. It was a Larry, they say styles make fights. All of these styles interact perfect with each other. All 4 teams where you can't tell who's coming out on top.
It will be, I believe, at least in my thought process, it will be the Timberwolves, it will be the Celtics. The Celtics have got to find a way to win this championship. You will not get a better chance than this.
I think the West will be favored over them. Whichever team represents the West is
and
going to be a
I love
slight
Ant
favorite.
Edwards. I love his matchup against anybody, whether it's Indiana or the Celtics, but this is it for the Celtics. Enough. Put up or shut up.
Since we're on a Celtics thing, though, just one other point. I don't feel like circumstances allowed them to play with any joy. This is a trudge for them.
I mean, well, they look pretty joyous up front. They went up 12-0. They were up, 20-6 at one point?
It's like they don't seem to enjoy it. It's like so much is expected of them, and the situation has fallen into place. Like, you can't enjoy anything because you cannot win public opinion, regardless of how these games come out.
I understand what you're saying, and even with Halliburton, who's been playing for the Pacers for so long, right? Like, he finally gets out of that second round, and he's playing. But still, I mean, do your job. Get your job done. You got your money. The guy's on that roster. You got to keep this core together. You brought in Porzingis, who was going to show up later in this series, it seems. You don't have an excuse not to get this job done.
Like it or not, Final Four in the Stanley Cups.
I think to what you said, the winner comes out of the West. I believe the winner comes out of the East. Out of the NHL. I mean,
Rangers?
I mean,
like 94? 30 years ago? Come on.
I didn't know you had a hockey team, too.
Yeah, the Rangers.
Well, now the Knicks are gone.
Oh, don't do that to me.
I hate to break your heart.
It's the truth, though.
I hate to break your heart.
They won the Stanley Cup in 94.
They did win a Stanley Cup in 94. They did. I think it's Florida. I think it's Buffalo Sabres South that's coming out and doing this. Bobrovsky, the goalie in Florida, has had a rough couple of years. He's back on track again. He looks good. He looks really good. You have Sam Reinhart, former Buffalo Sabre, who's one of the best goal scorers in the league. You have Brandon Montour, former Buffalo Sabres defenseman, who's just eating up minutes as an offensive defenseman. You have Kyle Okposo, Buffalo Sabres captain, who was here just a couple of months ago, who's putting in valuable third and fourth line minutes. And then Evan Rodriguez, even a undrafted free agent who was signed because he was a friend of Jack Eichel, is contributing to this Panthers team. I just think they're too dominant and there's too much going for them.
Getting Edmonton in the final would be helpful, wouldn't it? To the league and the sport in general.
Well, here's the thing. Even if you get Edmonton and, as they call him, McJesus, Connor McDavid, and Leon Draisaitl on a line with him, you're going to see him for 4, 5, 6, 7 games, and then they go back to playing in Western Canada again. Like, him being stuck in Western Canada is hurting the NHL in ways you cannot imagine.
Speaking of hurting, what is against New York teams?
I know. I have nothing against the New York teams. But I don't. I think that Florida's a better team. That being said, you brought up McDavid. Something is wrong with him. He is hurt playing in these playoffs. Normally, he's firing shots like crazy, scoring points like crazy, scoring goals like crazy. He's not pulling the trigger in ways that he used to. He's passing up open nets. It's happened a couple of times in the last series they played against Vancouver. Keep an eye out for that. I think that might be what keeps that from happening in the Stanley Cup.
Like it or not, it was brought to you by Ralph Honda. Unfinished Business is next.
The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. Come home to McArdle's.
Unfinished Business is brought to you by Greg the Roofer. Better roof, better price. Better call Greg today. Save time and money on your roof and siding. Call us today for a free estimate. Special financing's available. Visit us online at gregtheroofer.com.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us here for the Rochester Press Box. Unfinished Business brought to you by Greg the Roofer. If you need a roof, you know where to call. Take it away.
Zach Edey is the big man for the University of Purdue, stayed 4 years, and has a really interesting path to the NBA because he's not what big mans are now. He doesn't shoot threes. He has massive length, heavy feet, tall as heck. If this was 1992, he'd be a top 5 pick. But unfortunately, because it's big man shooting, moving, playing from outside in anymore, nobody knows where to put him. And Zach Edey should be carefully watching the Eastern Conference Finals right now because it pits the Indiana Pacers, who lead the league in shooting percentage for threes, points scored by threes, versus the Boston Celtics, who lead the league in points scored inside with the pickup of Kristaps Porzingis that happened, in the offseason earlier this year. There seems to be a transition happening once again because basketball is a living, breathing entity. When something works and it starts to go one way, teams will buy into it. The Splash Brothers of Golden State, it's all done. They've aged out. And if Boston can continue to score points in the paint and win maybe a championship that way, well, that makes it a lot easier for a general manager or an old school head coach, let's say like a Greg Popovich, to go ahead, draft Edey, and give him minutes trying to win basketball games the way they used to, the way that nobody knows how to defend against anymore. If Indiana can pull out this series shooting the long ball, well, there's no justification. But if Boston, winning old school ways basketball, can win a championship, why would I not take a late first round pick on a flyer on this kid?
1 week ago, I was sitting right where you are, right where I was, getting ready for the Knicks to take on the Indiana Pacers in Game 7. A great Sunday afternoon, weather-wise, unbelievable, and a do-or-die game for both organizations. As I sat there the week before watching, or at least listening to, the Mother's Day massacre that took place in which the Knicks were totally destroyed in the Indiana Pacers, I still had hope and loved this team no matter what from the ground up. You can call them the Nova Knicks if you would like, but they are a team that bled and played all the way through. Dante DiVincenzo in Game 7 was hurt. You could see that physically. So did Jalen Brunson, who broke his hand during Game 7 of that series. Yet DiVincenzo and Hart played all the way through to the end of that game. What it does is set the tone for next season. Okay, Indiana Pacers advance on to the Eastern Conference Finals. But wait till they find out their number 1 and 2 will be back. Will they be the same team? Will we be the same team? No. What I saw was growth. I loved every minute of it, even the pain of the loss of Game 7. So thank you to my New York Knicks organization, team, players, fans, yes, and even ownership. It was well worth it. I'm mourning I'm going to have to wait another week or two before I start going to my New York Mets.
There's an annoying trend out there. It isn't really new, but it is reaching new heights of absurdity. Built-in bias has long been a fact of life among play-by-play announcers and analysts who are hired by the teams that they cover. It comes with the territory. I'm not a big fan of openly cheering or the use of the insightful, boy, we could sure use a hit right now. That's contributing nothing, less than nothing, in fact. We're forced to tolerate this because there is no escape. But national audiences deserve better. A little more balance, because they are being consumed by the fans of all sides. So it is more than tiresome to have ESPN's Mike Greenberg moan about the plight of his beloved New York Jets, and to hear Skip Bayless fawn over the Dallas Cowboys, or to be forced to listen to Stephen A. Smith pontificate on anything. The coverage of the New York Knicks versus Indiana Pacers Game 7 on Sunday was an embarrassment. The pregame featured clips of Stephen A.'s arrival and a pep talk he offered the Knicks. His outrage over the outcome was predictable. Smith's mere presence on these network telecasts justifies the mute button, which is a shame because the other panelists have something besides their own egos to offer. But these guys and others are where they are and what they are because this is what we want, apparently. We shouldn't. As sports consumers, we should demand better. Demand better of ourselves. Something better than, I'm Stephen A., baby. I make my own rules. That's our Unfinished Business, brought to you by Greg the Roofer, and that is our show.
All this guy does is whine about his Bills all the time.
Says man who only does is whine about his Knicks and his Mets. He just started whining about the Rangers. You never brought him up till now.
But he says it's awful announcing. It's not awful announcing. It's
But you guys roll out reason. I think, and I believe you're both to be honest in your opinions.
And delusional. We're both delusional a little bit.
I love what you hate, and I didn't know it was supposed to be. No, I'm serious. Like everything you despise about it, I enjoy, and I didn't know it was supposed to be cloudy today. As you, as an old man, shake your fist and yell at them over your head.
That sounds like a record. I love what you hate.
Ooh,
there you go.
Ribs, Arkansas.
Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box, and with a little luck, we'll be back again next week.
You didn't think I knew that?
See, I was going to make a Kendrick Lamar reference, and I didn't think anybody watching would have known that.
No, Ribs, Arkansas would have worked.